Good evening. My name is Cynthia Cote, and I'm going to be talking to you about research-based remediation strategies. For this particular talk, I'm going to be presenting on what I know about kindergarten. Kindergarten is a group that I've been working with for the last 10 years at the school that I teach at, so I feel like I'm pretty confident and know quite a bit in kindergarten. It says, explain the difference between an intervention and remediation, including an example of each. So when we talk about intervention, that's more of a formal assessment of a student. So this would include sometimes getting the child a neuropsych, or sometimes, but most often getting the IEP in place so that you can move forward with this student, but it is a very formal process. When we look at remediation, though, that's kind of more of an informal process. That's something that you can do in the classroom. You can pull the student out for a couple of minutes, but this happens during the school day and it's not a formal assessment. And then it says, identify 2 common reading assessments that can be administered to students in the grade band. Explain the type of data that would be produced from each assessment and how that information could be used to determine appropriate remediation strategies. For this one, I decided to talk about the DIBELS assessment as the first one. I just gave a student a DIBELS assessment today. This is a student that is struggling and a little bit below the kindergarten level. So I gave the student a DIBELS assessment today, and that just kind of tells us how many words they can give us in a minute. So it is a timed assessment. The other assessment tool that we use quite often is the one that they have on Reading Rockets. That one has a lot of resources that you can use, and that's another great assessment tool, and it doesn't feel so pressured like the DIBELS one does. It says, identify 2 reading remediation resources, including at least 1 technology-based online resource. For this one, I want to talk about Seesaw first. Seesaw is a great tool and something that we use all the time for assessments at the school that I teach at currently. It's great because you can keep things in a document and pull them up later, and also you can share the file for the student with their parents or caregivers. So it's really a wonderful assessment tool. The other one that I wanted to talk about was the Bratton reading and spelling assessment. I think that that's a great tool as well, and we use that one a little bit, but like I said, not as often as Seesaw. So let's see. Okay, sorry. Describe reading remediation settings and when each is most appropriate for the student. I think that this can happen in a couple of different places. I think that the first place that it often happens is in the classroom. And even though it is hard to get a really good assessment on a student in a classroom, that's actually one of the only times that teachers have to do this. So oftentimes we pull the student aside, ask them a few questions, write things down, and that's really just an informal assessment. The other time that this can happen is when they're pulled out for something else. We have a reading center at our school, so that's when a reading specialist comes and pulls the students that need this service out, and that's a time where they can get this as well. So both of those times. Describe 2 reading remediation strategies that could be used with students, including 1, multisensory. I chose to talk about the game that we often play in our class. It's called Sparkle, and it's basically where you are pinching out the sounds. Like, let's say I have the word mat, and one student says and the next student says ah, and the next student says t, and then the student standing next to them says sparkle because they tapped out all those sounds. That's a really good game. The other one that I was thinking about for multisensory would just be writing in shaving cream or sand or cornstarch or whatever it may be, but that multisensory writing game is wonderful, a wonderful tool to use. And then it says, what at-home strategies do you offer? Well, at home we prefer that families use reading rockets because I think that really is an incredible tool. And all of our students have a Reading Rockets account, so it's even better. And then another one that we always send home is cornstarch, because students love working in cornstarch. If it's wet, if it's dry, it doesn't matter, but it's something that can go home and parents can use that. So I hope this was helpful. Thanks so much for listening.